Gifted singer-songwriter Andrew McMahon, who records under the name Andrew McMahon in the Wilderness, Cecilia, and the Satellite from his self-titled album. Our time is 7:56, and I'm very honored to have with us two doctors from the University of Michigan Depression Center. Dr. Melvin McInnis is with us, along with Dr. Sagar Parikh. Do I have that right, Sagar? Am I getting close? Am I in the ballpark there? Thank you for joining us this morning. Melvin, may I just call you by your first name? Is that okay? Yeah, yes, Melvin, welcome back to Ann Arbor's 107.1. Tell us about your work at the U of M Depression Center and define depression. This is a word that we hear so much, and probably everyone who's listening knows someone in their family or a friend or someone in the world who is afflicted by depression. But what separates depression from having a bad day or having the blues or naturally feeling bad or feeling awful after the loss of a family member? What distinguishes that from depression?
Well, depression is an illness of the brain. It's an illness that affects the brain as a central organizer, a coordinator of our energy level, of our emotion, and the way that we think. So in depression, these things become pathologically or very ill in the sense that it disrupts the individual's ability to function and perform the tasks that they normally do.
Okay. And Sagar, what differentiates depression from bipolar disorder? Because you wanted to touch on that this morning as well. It's not the same thing, is it?
No, those are two different mood disorders. Both experience the same problems with depression at times when you're in an episode. But what distinguishes bipolar disorder, which used to be called manic depression, is that once in a while you may experience a manic episode, which is often weeks of the opposite of depression, where there's too much energy, the person is thinking too fast, talking too much, and probably engaging in risky behaviors, making bad choices. In a superficial way, they resemble someone who's moderately intoxicated when they're manic.
Okay. What's some of the latest research that both of you and other staff at the Depression Center have been doing on both of these issues, on depression and bipolar disorder? Melvin?
Yes, well, one of the things that we're doing is to look for markers that are able to predict the risk of an individual developing an episode of the disorder. So we're looking for markers that are in the blood, looking for imaging markers, and also looking at patterns of speech that the individual has that could potentially predict when they're about to get into an episode or go into an episode.
So speech, the way someone is sounding, the way they're talking.
It sounds and the way they talk, not the content of their speech, but just the way that they speak may be a good biological marker to predict if someone is headed for an episode. They start changing. Family members, for example, we learn from our patients, we learn from families, and they tell us that, when John or whoever, one of my family member was headed for this episode, I could hear it in the way that they speak. There was something different about them. So if we could determine when that is happening and get them or persuade them to see their physician in time, we hope to be able to prevent that. And other biological markers may be present in the blood that we could look at a pattern and see when that's changing, because it's all about getting to the doctor and getting care in good time, and then finding the right treatment for the right person at the right time.
Mm-hmm. Sagar, you have to mention this, because just before we went on mic here, I was asking you about if there's any new research or any new drugs or anything that can help depression. I mean, this just afflicts so many people here, everywhere. Like I said, opening up this interview, we all know someone who's had to overcome depression or is trying to overcome it. Anything new in this field of depression in terms of drugs or other therapies to help people out?
Well, there are two or three things, and they're at opposite ends of the spectrum. So for the most severely ill, there are actually new surgical techniques where you get a kind of a pacemaker implanted, which sends electrical stimulation to certain areas of the brain that are known to be responsible for depression. This is still an experimental technique, but it has been tried now on hundreds of patients worldwide, and it shows real promise for the very severely ill. At the other end of the spectrum, we're learning how to use smartphones and other kinds of e-health, electronic health strategies to help people. And problems with access and getting care when you want it are a major barrier worldwide. So imagine, just like when you go online and you check something. What if you could access certain forms of psychotherapy online for free? In fact, you can do that. And this is being tested in various ways about what's the best strategy. And then you can have exercises. We've all seen people doing brain health exercises on their smartphones or on their laptops. There are things that are more specifically developed for fighting depression that can be loaded onto your laptop or smartphone. And so we're trying to figure out which one of these tools is the best, and also what should the sequence be? When should you start with that, and when should you seek professional help?
Melvin, let's close out this interview by talking about you're doing research and are looking for some people to participate in research?
We have several research programs going. We have a program that's sponsored by the Heinz Prechter Research Fund at the University of Michigan. We have a number of programs that are focused on depression as well. And I want to emphasize that it is often difficult to find care and treatment for mood disorders in general, and so one of the very strong options that an individual could look into is to see if there's a research project that the person could engage with, and so we certainly would be delighted to speak with anyone who's interested in pursuing that.
How can people reach you? Through your website? That's the best way?
Through the website. There's just at the depressioncenter.org, the University of Michigan, or the prechterfund.org at the University of Michigan.
Easiest way, again, depressioncenter.org. Are there many other universities that do this type of research?
Well, there are many other universities around the country. Yeah. We collaborate with up to around 20 universities that are focused on doing research in mood disorders. So we all know each other and get along very well and just delight in our work. Just
a pleasure to talk to both of you. Thank you for getting up early and joining us today on 107.1.
Thank
you. Good to have you both here. That's Sagar Parikh and Melvin McInnis, both doctors and both part of the University of Michigan Depression Center as part of the U of M health system. Let's carry on here with Till Tuesday on Ann Arbor's 107.1.